Hello, YouTube people, or maybe just me who's watching this like a year from now. I figure it's time to do another Clowns and Robbers production diary update. It's been a while since I've talked about where we're at. It's kind of been a while since we've done much with it. This is it behind me. I thought I'd pick a cool frame to tease the timeline so far. A rough cut of just about everything we've filmed. Goes to like an hour and 27 minutes. Spoiling the movie. Okay, so anyway, this doesn't spoil anything. So where are we at? It is middle of January. A lot's happened the last month or so. That really doesn't have anything to do with clowns, but it's been a weird holiday season for us. It's been a weird month. We've had Christmas and New Year's and all that jazz. My grandfather passed away 2 weeks before Christmas, so just dealing with all that family stuff. Kimmerton, who's the lead actor and co-writer, business partner, he moved back to LA to kind of do some acting stuff over there for a while. We did a weird, impromptu film competition for Red camera that, oddly enough, we won a Red Weapon camera, which is the craziest thing that's probably ever happened to me. As far as clowns goes, I've been doing a lot of ADR, getting not really ADR yet, actually. I've been doing a lot of Foley, just getting sound effects in the first, quarter of the movie so far. I've started sending pieces of the movie to our composer, Landon Miller, who is the front man for the Wall Chargers, which is a band we've done a lot of music videos for, if you notice on our channel. He did the score for The Paranormals, if you watch that, and he's going to be working on the music for Clowns and Robbers as well. So my job right now is try and get the movie in a good enough shape to where I can send as much of it as I can over to him to start making music for. But I'm in that weird gray area where you don't really want anybody to see it yet because it's still got such rough edges, and trying to get as polished as I can before I send it to him so he has an understanding of how it'll look and feel. I have kind of for the first time watched it kind of all the way through and kind of got my first overall impression of it, which is very positive compared to anything else we've done, obviously. It's a big step up, and I'm kind of balancing this line of how far do I want to take it to make it perfect versus at what point do you cut yourself off and say, okay, this is what we made when we made it. Let's finish this and then move on to the next thing versus let's take this and really give it everything and take as long as we need to do to make it perfect before, that's a weird space to be in, is when do you let go? For instance, I'm thinking about some additional scenes I'd like to do for the movie. I've got about 3 or 4 ideas. Actually, these little Post-it notes right here are scene ideas I've been scratching out, things that would help in certain transitions. Or if you followed our production diaries, you probably know that a lot of this was kind of put together. The process was very overlapping. So we did write a lot in the beginning of last year, and then a lot of things changed as we were filming. We had some of our plans got kind of ruined about where we could go and what we could do. A big part of the movie takes place on the road. We ended up only being able to shoot for 2 days when we were planning to shoot for a week. So throughout the process, we've been constantly changing the script and adapting it. Kind of the writing and the shooting are very much overlapped. Overall, it's been a very interesting process. It's been definitely the hardest project I've ever had to do, just because it's bigger than anything we've tried to do, but it's also been, I guess maybe it's hard to know if it's it's probably partially my standards are higher, so I want to push it further, but it's also the way we've done this has been sort of so kind of unorganized. We just haven't had the resources to really do what we're trying to do, so everything's been, I've been stretched really thin and trying to make it happen. That being said, there's a big part of me that feels like if we really go for this and really take it as far as we can, it's going to be really good, because I think there's this energy to it that's really interesting and unique, and it's definitely something that only we could have done the way we did it. So I'm just kind of navigating all that kind of conceptual stuff right now. Where are we going to take it? This is definitely a project. It's going to come out when it's done and when it's ready. And I anticipate that'll probably be summer or fall before it's like done. And then, you know, before I put it on YouTube, we're going to try to do festival circuit and stuff like that. So you're really not likely going to see this movie on YouTube even in 2017, just to set expectations. The point of me doing these videos isn't really to build hype. If I am, I'm sorry, you know, hopefully, I guess that's a good thing for me and bad thing for you. But this is really just a way for me to document the steps along the way, because this has proven to be a really long process where it's actually, I didn't even think about that, but it's been like a year now, just about, since the first video I made for this. So I guess it's the 1 year anniversary of vlog or production diary that just occurred to me. So I guess I did accomplish the goal I set back then, which was I wanted a year from now to have at least shot a feature or started shooting. I don't remember which I said, but both are kind of true. I've shot most of a feature and may do some pickup reshoots. But anyway, it's a journey, and I'm just trying to document the journey as best I can. One more thing I'll say, just to kind of go on a little bit of a deeper note about kind of making a feature, making clowns. This is our third feature, or my third feature, because we have a kind of an ever-evolving crew of people involved. It's the hardest thing about doing this is the kind of delayed gratification. You know, when you're making like a Hollywood film, you're at least being paid appropriately and it's your job, but you're also usually on a fairly compressed timeline. You know, you got a budget for this amount of time to make the film. It's got a release date. You got to pump it out, and you have generally a team of the best people working on everything to kind of grease the wheels and make that happen. At that level, I expect, I've never done it myself, obviously, but I would expect that that's, you know, the best way to make a movie. Obviously, it's going to be easier. You have the resources available to you, and you get there faster. What's really hard about making a feature with basically no money and volunteers and no real professional crew is that when I'm spread that thin, it's a lot of time. It requires a lot of me doing things I don't really want to do for the sake of trying to make the movie the best it could be. So like doing a little bit of Foley is fun, but doing Foley for a feature-length film by yourself when you're not really a sound guy, it's just a lot of like homework. It's grunt technical work. Usually just even getting the edit to a place where you can really actually kind of make the creative editing decisions and kind of work to telling the story. It's really hard to get to that point. There's a lot of grunt work of just getting everything lined up and getting a rough cut together and getting the sound in there and getting everything synced and just getting it to where you can watch it takes a lot of work. So it's really hard to it's really easy to lose sight of why you're doing what you're doing, or it's really easy to give up or to like not want to do it. As weird as that sounds, like you would think, oh, you've shot all this footage, you got a feature film in front of you, I bet you're like chomping at the bit to like work on it every day. It's not really like that. It really does become work, and when you've been doing it for a year now since we started writing it, you do get tired of it, and you go. There's times when you kind of question it, and it's like taking so long, and it's laborious. It's obviously something I'm passionate about, but it's not always like the best thing in the world to be making a movie. There's a lot of struggle, and I've seen, I've had friends try to make features that they can't finish it because you just get caught up. All the little things that get in the way, it's too much weight to manage. It takes a lot of persistence and kind of personal commitment to finishing what you start to get there, because it's really easy to not want to finish it. And it makes making a short film look like a piece of cake, because when you're only working with 5, 10, 15 minutes or whatever, it's a lot easier to power through that and get to the end when you've got hour and a half, 2 hours to get through, and you want to make it all as nice as you can make it, but you don't have the resources or the team to really do that in an easy and effective way. You realize you've got to grind through every minute of that movie Um, I've got to color correct every shot. I've got to put Foley for every single little action in the movie. I've got to mix all the dialogue. In some cases, I've got to re-record dialogue because we didn't have a dedicated professional sound guy in this movie. Some days I'd have our composer Landon like holding the boom and helping out, but a lot of it was me running sound in addition to camera, in addition to directing. So I'm setting up labs on the actors, having to check and make sure everybody sounds good and they're not getting any kind of interference or they're not like rubbing on anything. Sometimes, having the boom as a backup, but not always. And so when you don't have the perfect kind of setup on set, then that's going to open the door to lots of little problems along the way, as we had. I've got to do a lot of stuff to fix it in post. It makes post really difficult. So that's where we're at. When you're doing something this scale, you eventually kind of go way beyond, you stretch way further than you think you can stretch, and it takes kind of everything you can do just to get it done. And when that process to get it done takes 1 to 2 years and you're not making any money from it, you don't really have the time to do it because you've got to make money doing something else. It really becomes a trying process. So as much as like making a feature sounds fun, and I do love it, and at the end of the day, like there's nothing better than being able to, the feeling of finishing one is amazing. But even at our level where we don't have any money and we're just running out what we have and our friends and just making it happen, it's really hard. That's why a lot of people don't do it. There's no secret to it. It's a lot of work. And the more you learn about the craft of filmmaking, the more you realize how manual everything is, and the more you realize how many kind of people you need to kind of cover all those manual tasks. And ideally, how many professionals you need to cover all those tasks. And you don't always have that. The kind of one thing I've noticed kind of between the difference between making short content and long content is long content's not just more of short content. It's not just like making like 6 or 8 short films to make a feature. It's a different medium almost. You're not focusing on the seconds as much as you're focusing on like the minutes, maybe, I guess. Or there's something about the scale of it to where you kind of let go of some things that you might not in a short, or it's all about the resource of time, I guess. I don't know where I'm going with this. But there's something about like with the feature, it's like the sum is greater than the parts, or the whole is greater than the sum. Yeah, the whole is greater than the sum of the parts, I think is the expression. I find that that's really true with a feature, because you're telling a story, and at some point you can actually forgive a lot of little things because you have this extended kind of arc to carry it through. In a short, I feel like you have to be a lot more perfect second to second. It's usually something flashier. It's more of a, I don't know, it's more of a showpiece. I feel like short films are almost always more of a showpiece rather than, it's hard to tell a story in 5 minutes. At least the way that our brains are kind of known to watch a movie. Most people aren't trained to watch a short film. So there's something about like when you're working in the traditional kind of 3-act, 2-hour movie structure, there's something more forgiving about that, and then it really becomes about kind of the marathon of getting there. Or what's that other, there's another expression where it's like win the battle and lose the war or whatever. A short film is a battle, a movie is a war. So I guess in that metaphor, there are places where you're going to lose the battle, but you can still win the war, I guess is kind of what's interesting about it. When you're just doing one battle, it's win or lose, But a war is much more complex. There's much more pieces. So that's where it's at. That's my little spiel about feature filmmaking. It's not easy, but the only way you'll know if you can do it is if you try. First time I made a feature, I was really just jumping off a cliff and I had no idea what I was doing. And it took a lot just to make it happen and to finish it. And looking back, it's like, well, thank God I did that, because I never would have, if I never mustered the kind of I don't want to say confidence because I wasn't confident, but I've never mustered like the willpower to go out and do it, I might not have made a second feature, or I might not be where I am now making a third feature. And whatever you think of those movies, that they're quality, you know, they're obviously not perfect, but it's something about over a period of time how that amasses and kind of becomes like who you are. Like you can't, if you know, it's hard to call yourself a filmmaker if you don't make films, you know, like it's kind of what that is like you just have to jump out and do it and not worry about if it's good or bad. You just have to kind of do it. So that's what we're doing. Okay, that's enough.